and the authority of power. So I'm excited about being a child of God and all that he's doing in our lives. And we want to continue to grow into that walk. So I think about this walk as we get prepared for the word today. It made me think about the butterfly, the contrast from becoming a caterpillar to a butterfly. You know, I thought it was kind of interesting when I looked at the process. There's so many familiarities of becoming who God has called us to be. You know, the process of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly is called metamorphosis, which is a Greek word that means transformation or change in shape. The metamorphosis of butterflies and moths has 4 stages. One, you have the egg. The butterfly's life begins in a small, round, or oval egg. Next thing you have is the larva, also known as a caterpillar. The larva eats and sheds its skin multiple times, growing up to 100 times its original size. I compared that to growing in knowledge as we're moving in our walk with God. The next thing was the pupa, also known as a chrysalis. The caterpillar spins itself a cocoon, a chrysalis, and hangs upside down. The caterpillar's body is almost completely dissolved and remade into the shape of a butterfly. It's like when God comes into our lives, he turns our world upside down. And he hangs us, we're hanging upside down. We don't know what's going on. We're trying to hold on. Can you relate to that? This is called decision making. This is where you have to make those tough decisions, those hard decisions. Then you have the adult. The butterfly breaks free from its cocoon. You're finally free from your human nature. Now you can operate in wisdom and the application of it, your knowledge and understanding. You're free from the control of your human nature, and you make decisions based on spirit and in truth. Because it's a horrifying thing to be hanging upside down, going through all the processes of becoming a butterfly. Same is true for becoming a free born-again believer, where the spirit being is now set free. Likewise, the contrast between dying to the human nature and serving God in spirit and in truth represents a significant shift from the old covenant to the new way of life, or from the human nature and to the spirit being. This metamorphosis signifies a transition from fear and trembling to grace and fellowship, mirroring the transformative power of Christ's sacrifice and ushering in a new era of spiritual reconciliation and salvation. Much like the caterpillar's remarkable evolution, the journey from living according to the human nature to living as a spirit being embodies profound and awe-inspiring transformation that shapes our understanding of the divine relationship and the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. That's why today I want to talk about the contrast between the human nature and serving God in spirit and in truth. Contrast between the human nature and serving God in spirit and in truth. The Word of God is full of symbolisms to show us what life is really like in reality, in our process of moving into a deeper relationship with God. There's a transition that has to take place. It's a process, just like the butterfly. He moves from a creepy caterpillar that most people would look at and run away from, and that'd be the same thing you're trying to catch when they become a butterfly. You'll sit there and see where they land on you, but you wouldn't let that caterpillar land on you, which if it was up to you, that caterpillar would never become a butterfly. Am I right? It depends on how he approaches you, right? So that's the same process it is for us becoming a born-again believer. We're going to be coming from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 14 through 24, and it reads, I'm sorry, 18 through 24. For you have not come to a mountain that can be touched, and to a blazing fire, and to darkness and gloom and whirlwind, and to the blast of a trumpet, and the sound of words which sound was such that those who heard begged that no further word be spoken to them. For they could not bear the command. If even a beast touches the mountain, it will be stoned. So, so tremble. It's like full of and tremble. But you come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood which speaks better than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who is speaking. For if those did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, much less will we escape from who turn away from him who warns us from heaven. And his voice shook the earth then, but now he has prophesied, saying, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. This expression, yet once more, denotes the removing of those things which can be shaken as of created things, so that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we receive a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us show gratitude by which we may offer to God an acceptable service with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. Let the church say amen. As we look at verses 18 to 21, we are told, you have not come to a mountain that can be touched, and to a blazing fire, and to darkness and gloom and whirlwind, and to the blast of a trumpet and the sound of words, which sound was such that those who heard begged that no further word be spoken to them. They could not cope with the command, if even an animal touches the mountain, it shall be stoned. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I am terrified and trembling. Imagine standing there in front of that mountain. All this big cloud, smoke, stuff going on, thunder and lightning. But before you do that, I want you to remember when you first met Moses. Remember when you first met Moses, the children of Israel. Go back to that place. They're in Egypt. Long time they've been suffering, calling on God to set them free. Then this man shows up named Moses. He said, look, I come to set y'all free. How would that sound to you? Really? How could you? You by yourself? Where's your army? You gonna go against Pharaoh by yourself. Where are the rest of the troops? This man, you've been out in the desert too long, so you don't know Pharaoh like we know him. So he comes in, he goes and do what God tell him to do. Of course, Pharaoh rebels. You see all of this. He gonna get killed today. You don't go before Pharaoh like that, talking about what you want. You got to even get a request to come before Pharaoh. He just march in. We'll see Pharaoh. You watching. You know any day it's gonna be a murder. It's gonna be a death. You just know it's coming. But that's all you know from Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh rules with a very, very hard hand, and he don't care about nobody but Pharaoh. So he goes and he makes this request, and Pharaoh like, are you out your mind? He show him a few tricks. Throw a stick down, turn to a snake. Pharaoh, people throw their stick down and eat up his snakes. Then it turns around and he's like, his snakes win. It's like, that was interesting. Pharaoh didn't kill him today. So you start to wonder, I wonder what could be going on. So anyway, they go through their thing, and lo and behold, not only do Pharaoh let you go, you are rich. Think of what you could do with all this wealth you have now. And you free today. Because Pharaoh might change his mind at any time. So you happy, but you ain't really comfortable sleeping. Right? So the thing goes down, and they're on the journey. I wonder what they're talking about on the way to wherever they're going. Man, that Moses is a bad boy. He came in by himself, freed all of us. Well, I sure like to be like Moses. Wow, That man got it going on. You happy now because you free. But you're always wondering, will Pharaoh come back and get us? Will he get his army back and come back to get us? You traveling, but you looking on your shoulder. You looking at Pharaoh wanted to see whoever won't with it. Because he could come and kill all those that won't with it. Some were probably smart. Y'all go ahead. I ain't falling for that one. He just ain't enough of him. So you move on, and lo and behold, you hear some thunder. Sounds like thunder. But it's the horses and the chariots and Pharaoh's army. I knew it was too good to be true. I knew it was too good to be true. Lord, what we gonna do? We got to move fast. We got to outrun him. Well, there's nowhere to go. I can't even swim. Look at all this stuff. Look at all these riches I got. I just can't lead in riches. Man, I ain't never been in this kind of shape. How can I salvage? How can I salvage what I got? It's going to sink if we go in the water. We got to get a good story for Pharaoh when he show up. We didn't know Pharaoh. We're sorry. We'll never do it again. But can we keep the money? I didn't know. He fooled us. He said, you said it was okay. We thought y'all had came to some kind of agreement. If we'd have known you didn't want us to go, I would have never left, boss. I'll be more than glad to go back and finish what we had started because we weren't that bad off with you. Right? Think about that. What are we going to do? You let us all we out here to get killed. So, but Moses said, be quiet. Shh, shh. Be quiet. Let's watch the Lord work today. Moses raises his staff and the sea parts. And it's dry land. We still gotta jump on him, y'all. Let's hear it. We can go across. Let's go. Pharaoh coming. He coming hard. So you make it to the other side, then you look back, Pharaoh still coming hard. But then God comes in and erases Pharaoh and all his influence from your world. Think about that. Hey, we ain't got to worry about Pharaoh no more. God has fixed him and all of his, we ain't got to worry about his soldiers coming to get us. We got to worry about none of that. We can now rest at peace. I ain't got to think about Pharaoh no more unless it's a bad dream. Think about that now. That's what you've just experienced. Now you know in your mind you free. Boy, bro, Moses was bad in Egypt. But what my boy did just now, part of that sea, hey, he the man. I want to be like Moses. God, he's so awesome. Look at what he can do by himself. He don't need no crew. Just following Moses. But you're free from your troubles now. You got money. You got your own way to take care of yourself. You don't really need nobody now. You smart. Only thing before, you didn't have opportunity. Not only you smart, you have opportunity and you free from your enemy. What kind of life does that look like for you? We can just do what we want now. We free. We got to worry about Pharaoh telling us when to eat, not to eat, what to eat. We can do what we want. And plus, we got money. I got security. So now they start their journey. What happens on the journey? They happy. They don't know where they're going. But they know they serve an almighty God that's so loving, so kind and patient. He don't show up when you want him, but he show up right on time. We wanted him to come 50 years ago, but man, I'm just as happy he came 50 years later. It's a great feeling. I didn't even imagine it could be so good at this stage of life. So they're on their journey. This is the God you've been talking to. You can't, I know you want to be able to tell him all that you have experienced and how excited you are to be in his presence today with an opportunity to serve him. Because you picture him as this nice old grandfather type of guy, mellow, laid back. He don't start nothing, but he'll finish stuff in a heartbeat. He's an old man sitting over there in the corner. Saying, do this, do that. Patiently say, go ahead, you got it. I'm with you, I'm with you. That's what you know of him, because you've been having nothing but hard times in life. And Moses says, we're going to meet God today. Get him ready, Moses. I'm going to show up. Get him. I'm going to show. What were you thinking? We're going to get to meet him. The man that delivered us from, woo-wee. I just can't wait. But he show up not like you thought he was going to show up. He show up on the mountain like a cloud. Lord, you ever had a real dark cloud come up when it's thundering and it's lightning? It's kind of humbling. You know, you sit on the porch because you like to see God work. But he does a sound and some choreography, whatever the word, of the things of nature dancing all around you. And it makes you, hey, Daddy, I might want to go inside. I like to see you work, but that sounds like a warning right there. I don't know. I thought I'd like to sit out and watch this stuff work. The rain blowing, but it's so dark. It's something about darkness that don't sound like, or even gives you the experience that this is a good place to be. Let's sit up and absorb it. But my brothers had a different perspective after they met God. God said, look, don't come near this mountain. I don't care what comes. If you come and touch this mountain, you're dead. This is the guy that just delivered us from Egypt. He talking about killing us now. We know he can do it. We saw what he did in Egypt. He killed some babies in Egypt. This who we've been waiting to see. I didn't picture this. Hey, child, come on in. Nice, warm, bright light, quiet and calm, peaceful. You feel the love. Daddy don't show up like that because he don't want you to get it twisted, who you dealing with. So he says, they said, listen. He said, can't be touched. And a blazing fire was going. And darkness and gloom. Darkness and gloom. You ain't happy. It's like downhearted. Your face is just, oh. Then the whirlwind. They got the wind going too. Whirlwind going. And you got this loud sounds going on like a blast of a trumpet, but it's like deafening. Which sound was such that those who heard begged that no further word be spoken to them. God, that's enough. I don't want to hear another word from you. Let me go back to my safe place. Let me go back. Before you showed up, let's go back to where you were before you showed up. We was having fun. We heard you was coming, and we was waiting. Enjoy. But my hero, Moses, that has conquered giants and kings and all the things of nature, he comes out of his mouth, I am terrified. So when he get terrified, you know it's time to get terrified. Moses is shaking. But Moses know he done met God. See, because your tomorrow is today. You know that, right? Your tomorrow is right now. The decisions that you make today, that's your tomorrow. They said, listen. All the people were watching and hearing the thunder and the lightning flashes, the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. That's a picture, isn't it? When the people saw it all, they trembled and stood at a distance. Then they told Moses, hey, that's your buddy. Go speak to him for us. Go speak to him for us, and we will listen. But do not have God speak to us, or we will die. Let that sink in. God to come into your world, he done shook it upside down. He telling you what he wants to do, and you like, that's enough. That's enough. Too much, too much. Take me back to the, right before we got here, let's go back there. When we were sitting at the mountain waiting, take me back there. That was a great place, right? It's a great place. But your day today is your tomorrow. So they said, listen, you talk to him for us. But Lord, don't you speak another word to us. And because we have hindsight, what they spoke that day came to pass. See, because they couldn't meet God where they were. They were getting prepared to meet God. But when time came to meet God, they changed their mind. It's more than I could bear. It's too much. Speak to him for us, God, and we will listen. We will listen. They painting their tomorrow today. Your tomorrow is right now. Yesterday's gone. Whatever you want for tomorrow, you have to build today. Because you're now a butterfly. He says, listen. However, Moses told the people, do not be afraid, for God has come to test you, so that the fear of him may remain with you, so that you will not sin. Moses understood the reality of the situation, why God was showing up. He wanted to test them. So they would fear God and stop calling him the big guy in the sky. Everything but God, by ATM. Moses said, listen, don't be afraid. I've been encountering God for a long time. He had me on the backside of the desert away from all the chatter and humbled me by teaching me how to be a shepherd. I met him in a fiery bush that wouldn't burn up. I've had experiences with him, and I know he's not come here to kill you because he told me to deliver you. So he's not here to hurt you. He's here to set you free. So Moses said, don't be afraid. So the people stood at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. Found in Exodus 20, 18 through 21. See, what Moses understood, that this was an opportunity to meet God. Even though God showed up in such a overwhelming, fear-stricken way in the minds of man, Moses said, I'll go talk to him. He wasn't afraid because he knew God didn't bring them this far to destroy them. He was moving them to take them to a better life. But you've never had a better life before, so how would you know what it takes for it to be like? Only God knows. But it's amazing when we get free from things, how we think we've become intelligent. We know the way now. We know the way now. And so they turned down their opportunity to have a personal relationship with God because of the unknown. Because their human nature was now in high gear, fighting against everything that God had in store for them. Because it's so strange. My perception and idea that I had of God is nothing like this reality. In all actuality, this looks like my enemy. We were in darkness. We were in bondage. We was in slavery. But you know, your past can look so much better when you come in touch with reality sometimes. So they wanted to go back and want Moses to speak to them. They wanted to move from that place where God was speaking to them. He wanted to go back to that place where they were waiting on God. And most people spend all their life waiting on God because they fail to take advantage of the opportunities that he gives them today. Because today is your tomorrow. What do you do with the opportunity that God gives you today to move into a closer relationship with him? We have hindsight to know that it's through trials and tribulations that these happen. This is the scene at Sinai, a place of divine power and majesty. It is emphasizing the fear and awe-inspiring nature of the old covenant, where God's presence was marked by fire, darkness, and the sound of a trumpet. The mention of Moses trembling with fear highlights the seriousness and gravity of the Old Covenant, the law of God, how God deals with disobedience. That's supposed to put fear in your heart, not complacency. Supposed to put you in awe of God. He's such a loving God, but he's just as fierce and can be just as angry. Someone to fear, not be afraid of. But if being afraid of him is how you move into a relationship with him, be afraid on. Because he knows how to move you from that place to see his loving side. But we must put God in his proper place and not make him one-sided. And it's definitely important for us because we are being delivered from a sinful nature. And we have to always be conscious of the dangers of operating in a sinful nature. Because God could come in at any moment like he did at the mountain. But he ain't coming like a lamb. He coming with destruction. Verses 18 to 21 describe a powerful contrast between the experience at Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. It emphasizes the fear and awe present at Mount Sinai, where the people experienced darkness, fire, and the sound of a trumpet, evoking a sense of terror and trembling. Thing about most people, they don't have no fear of God. And that's what God said. No one is righteous. No one seeks after him. And his last statement he said was, no one fears God. No one fears God. How can we say we fear God when we know the consequences of sinning and it does nothing to inspire us to move away from that place? When we know the dangers of operating in the human nature, but it doesn't inspire us to stop operating in it. This is where we have to really search and ask ourselves, am I really after God? Do I really want to meet God? Knowing that in these places, I will never be able to please God. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be eating dirt. But if it's in the human nature, you're never going to move close to God. You will never be able to hear God. You'll never be able to please God. And this is what God is trying to get them to understand now. But they, out of their human nature, decide they don't want to speak to God. It's too much, too overbearing. The things that God requires, it's too overbearing just to come into his presence. Because I'm reminded of the condition that I'm in. This scripture serves to highlight the divine power and majesty associated with the old covenant. Your human nature, being created in the image and likeness of God, but being programmed to follow the human nature and not God. Scripture says, but you have come to Mount Zion and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood which speaks better than the blood of Abel. The contrast between Sinai and Zion holds great significance as it represents a shift from the old covenant to the new covenant. Becoming born again under the new covenant is a shift from the human nature to being a spirit being who God created us to be. And it's hard for most people to wrap their minds around that place. I wonder why. The human nature. The human nature will not allow you to understand the significance of recognizing yourself as a spirit being who only operates in the truth. Spirit. You. Knowing the truth and the way of God. And knowing how God does things through the examples that he's given us in his word. The description of the terrifying and awe-inspiring scene at Sinai with its blazing fire and the sound of the trumpet serves to remind us of the power and majesty of the law. Are we under the law or are we not under the law? That's an argument of today. We're free from the law. You're free from trying to use the law to make you righteous, but you're not free from the law. You're free from trying to use the law to make yourself right with God. You're free from that stigma that the human nature through religion placed in your mind. So you'll stop looking at people and what they're doing and not doing as if that's going to be significant to them having a proper relationship with God. Coming to Mount Zion and the heavenly Jerusalem symbolizes access to the presence of God and the spiritual community of believers. Coming into the presence of God, which you cannot do in your human nature. You cannot come into the presence of God in your human nature. And once you understand the difference between your human nature and being a spiritual being, it's simple as making a decision. You cannot come before God in the human nature. They're mortal enemies to God. This lets us know of the transition from fear and trembling associated with the law to the grace and fellowship found in the new covenant. The law is no longer on the table. God is no longer holding people's sins against him. So if he's no longer holding people's sins against him, which are only magnified or revealed through their decisions and the actions that they make, well, you know that if you're looking at people's actions and trying to determine where they are with God, you're making a terrible mistake. It shows that you're still under the law. And we subconsciously stay under that law trying to decide what's right and what's wrong, right? Whether we realize it or not. I'm doing this, I'm not doing that. So what are you saying? You have to do this or don't do that to be right with God? That bill has been paid. The question is, what are you becoming? Do I do this or don't do that? The question becomes, what does doing that or not doing that reveal about you? Does it influence you to do something that goes against the will of God? It's what comes out of the heart, not what goes in. If looking at the Mary Jane cakes, when you buy one, with the little girl on front, leads you to want to do something other than buy the cake and eat it, that might be a problem for you. You might want to change cakes. Because that thing is influencing you to do or want to do something outside of the character of God that you say you represent. And it wants you to go satisfy the human nature and its desires that go against the will of God. The new covenant and sprinkled blood speaks better than the blood of Abel. It's referencing the redemptive work of Jesus Christ. The redemptive work of Jesus Christ, which frees you to now obey God, which was impossible before you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Why? Because of your human nature that's programmed to serve the human nature, which is totally hostile toward God. And in it, you cannot please God.